welcome, even though guys, welcome to this training. Just introduce myself. I'm Danny, the Managing Director, and here to welcome Dave Sullivan from Australis, obviously representing TOA. We've had a long history with TOA, going all the way back to Audio Products Group days. And yeah, I think we're just very grateful that it's ended up in the good hands.
Yes.
of Australis music, obviously good culture coming from a music background as well, and still are. So yeah, I'm sure we've enjoyed a good partnership, and we'll continue to enjoy the partnership going into the future. So I'll leave it to Dave. Thanks, guys.
G'day. Thanks for that. Thanks for having me here, guys. So yeah, as Danny said, I'm David Sullivan, so I'm the account manager for Victoria and Tasmania for Australis. Just give you a super quick overview of what we do. So we distribute a number of brands. Obviously, TOA is certainly one of our biggest brands that we do, and we do with radio parts here. We do, as Danny said, we come from a musical instrument background, so we're the largest independent musical instrument distributor in Australia and I think New Zealand as well. But we also have a large pro audio division, so we focus on speakers and amps and TOA, and now we're getting into more control and IP based. So what I'm here to talk to you about today is the TOA IP paging system. It's a range of products. TOA's been going for over 100 years now. Certainly one of the biggest suppliers of public address systems in the world, but they also do all kinds of other things. Obviously here's a picture of a train station. Every train station in Victoria, except for a select few, has TOA in various forms in it, running the station and the audio. And we do Melbourne Airport and various other sites as well. So it's been around a long time. It's well trusted, well used. It's incredibly reliable, and this is why people keep coming back to it. So I'll get into it. So the TOA IP-A1 paging system, they've been working on this for years. We've seen a few sort of iterations that they were testing out in product type, but they've spent a long time developing it. They were about to launch it and then redeveloped it from scratch because they weren't happy with it. The one thing about TOA is they will, before they release a product to market, they will test everything within an inch of its life, which is great, makes it super reliable, and they're not doing beta testing on the customers. So the TOA IP system is a range of about eight or nine products, purely designed so you can do IP paging across a network rather than the traditional 100-volt line, but you can still incorporate with those systems. So I'll get into the features of it rather than going through it here. So, key overview, you can have up to 255 IP devices, so each one of these is an IP device on a single network, and then you can run multiple networks if you wanted to and get more. Up to 20 multicast paging zones. So I'll get into the SIP versus multicast paging, but the multicast allows you to group products together or page to everything. And you can page to all the devices individually if you want. You can run it as a standalone IP system, or you can integrate with an existing system. So that's a really good feature straight off, because you go into an existing customer, they've got existing old 100-volt line stuff. They don't have to throw everything out to convert to IP. Multiple audio protocols, you can use it with third-party devices, third-party IP devices or IP speakers. If they can accept the codecs or the protocols, then 100% will work with it. Really powerful thing, the integrated multi-day, week, month, yearly scheduler and timer. So you can run it as a bell timer or set announcements. I'll get into that. The main thing from your guys' perspective is it's super easy to configure, it's easy to deploy, and it's very simple programming. So you don't have to be a coder or anything like that to program the schedule and the setup. It's really easy to use, and I'll show you that in a bit. So this is the overview of the range. It's a group of two types of products. You have transmitters and receivers. The transmitters run all the scheduling and events, and receivers obviously receive the audio, but they can also store audio and do events by themselves. We'll get into each product. The main core of it is the AR1M, which is the microphone you see here. It's a paging mic, obviously. You can record into it, and it runs a schedule. One of the really key advantages of the system is you don't need a separate server to run all the schedules. All the timing, events, scheduling, configuration is loaded on the device, and you just log into it, which we'll do in a bit, and I'll show you that. So you don't need to run separate servers or PCs to run it, like some of the other systems out there. All the audio can be loaded on the devices as well, so you can have up to 80 megs of audio, MP3 or WAV. So this is the key features, it's pretty obvious. Gooseneck mic, volume control, it's got a monitor speaker. So with this you can page just by holding this, pressing the button, but you can also pre-record and listen to your page before it goes out. So if I hold this is a test page, I am testing the recording. And then I hold the monitor key. This is a test page, I am testing the recording. So you can do your page, listen back to it. If you've made a fluff up or anything like that, then you record it again, and then you send it out to the great wide world. So a bit safer than the traditional someone holding a mic and you know, making a bit of a boo-boo. Oh, I jumped one. Okay, this device is called the Paging Gateway. This is an interface to SIP systems. It's also an audio converter, so it can take audio signals, convert them to an IP signal, and send it out to the network. Effectively, this does everything the paging microphone does, but obviously you don't have a microphone attached to it. So if you've got a setup where you're just launching events or bell timers or something like that, and you don't need a microphone and don't want anyone to access the network and do pages or anything like that, you can use this device. It's got all the same features in terms of the scheduling and GUI and everything like that, so you can run the entire system from this device. You can also have a mic input, so that you can do local paging if you want, or if you've got an existing paging mic and you don't need all the features that this one has, like all the preset keys and so forth, then you can plug a mic into that and still run the system normally. And you've got a monitor out as well, so you can monitor it locally in a local speaker as well. The audio interface, this is this device. This is the main device that we'd see going out to the buildings. So I'm going to talk about deployments here based on schools, because we see schools as one of the main areas where this will go into, because new schools are being preloaded with Ethernet rather than 100-volt cable. Existing schools are looking to change from having wires going everywhere when they've already got Ethernet, so we see it as a really good target market. The audio interface is really a breakout box, so it's got a small 8-watt low impedance amp built in, but the main use of it is to take the IP signals and convert it to audio. So you deploy this if you had, say, an existing school and they've got 5 buildings, they've got amps in each building running the speakers, and they want to convert to an IP paging system. You'd have this at the office, and you have one of these in each building connecting to the existing amp. Then they can do all the IP features without having to rip out everything and replace it. It's also got a mic input as well. So we're working on one system at the moment where they have lots of stations or stops or whatever. They want to be able to page from control room, but they also want the local people to have a wireless mic so they can stand at that point in the station and then use the mic to talk locally rather than paging to the whole network. So you can do it with this because it's got the input on the back. You also got control in and control out on all devices, so you can launch events by contact closures or a preset button or an emergency button. You can do that on all the devices as well, including the paging mic here. Oh, sorry, I glazed over one very important fact. All of these devices are PoE, right? So I've got a PoE switch here. They get the power from that. If they don't have PoE If they don't have PoE switches, then you can put a PoE injector in there to run it. Some of the devices, I think this one, I could be wrong. No. I think one of the devices you can put a 24 volt signal into, but I'll double check that, I could be wrong. This is the amplifier. It looks exactly the same as this, apart from missing the bit on the front. It's a dedicated 100 volt, 70 volt IP amplifier. It can run, I think it's 12 watts. Yeah, 12 watts out to the local speakers. So this would probably go into an area where you don't have an existing amp. You've got a few speakers that need to be run. You know, obviously 12 watts is not going to run an entire building, but it's also got a line out as well. So you can use it to run a couple of speakers and also send a line out to a bigger amp if you needed it. And it's got a mic in as well. So even with this, you can do local paging with a microphone as well. Pretty straightforward. And this is the ceiling speaker, which I don't have here. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's an IP ceiling speaker with 8 watts. These are used in specific areas. There's not a big case for using them across a whole site, mainly because you've got to run an Ethernet cable to every single one. So if you've got 100 speakers, you need a massive big couple of PoE switches, and then you need to run a lot of cables. There has been one deployment I know of in Victoria where they needed each speaker in each office to be able to be individually addressed. It wasn't with TOA, it was with another brand, but it's with the one of the Parliament buildings. So the minister could go in and get their own feed independent of everyone else, or get paged to individually. So this is where these would come in. But you certainly wouldn't generally put these into a school where they need 200 speakers. It's just not viable. It's far better to have an audio interface and then run cheap amps and 100 volt line. Obviously we've got the horn here. This is a 15 watt horn. It works with this system, but it also takes a number of different codecs, so it can work with a third-party IP system as well. Pretty straightforward. Again, these devices, even though they aren't running the scheduling, you can run them separately and independently. They've got their own GUI, and I'll show you that in a bit, so they can run events by themselves, or stick one on a pole, give it power, and have it launching events, because it can store audio as well. And then there's a little analog talkback, because this system is two-way as well. You can send audio across and receive. I forgot to mention on this horn, it's got a microphone built in, so in security situations you can listen to areas and launch events based on audio being picked up. But this microphone panel you can have in a classroom or at an office, or someone can press the button and then talk back to the main control room, or page across the network if you wanted to. Again, all programmable. That's just a standard mic with an audio output. It goes into one of these audio interfaces or the gateway to convert it back to IP. So, different ways of actually getting audio across the network. The first one is internal audio files, so they can store 20 audio files up to 80 megs of MP3 or WAV. You can set the volume level per audio file, you can set the time, you can set it to repeat, you can set it to be launched automatically or via contact closure or an event. Next way is SIP broadcast. So you can integrate the system with an existing SIP phone system in the building. So for instance, you would have an extension number. If that extension number is dialed and someone talks into it, that would do a page to a group of devices or the entire network. We also use the SIP protocol to page to individual devices, and I'll explain that in a bit more depth in a bit. VMS on-VIF audio back channel. This is a security protocol, so you can integrate it with video security and broadcasting or an existing security system. So certain events can launch audio, or you can page to it using the VMS. And multicast streaming. I'll get into the differences between SIP and multicast in a bit, but basically multicast is how we page to a group of devices. It's just a slightly different protocol. And then, yeah, as I mentioned before, two-way communication, so you can use the mic or use a security system to have paging back and forth if you needed it. And then we also have priority management. So every kind of page or every kind of event can be prioritized over one or another. That way you can integrate it with an emergency system as well. So obviously if an emergency signal comes from the fire panel, it has priority over everything else and can launch different events based on that event. Or you've got alarms or bells, timers going, or set pages, and then you have a person wanting to do a one-off page. You can set that to have a higher priority than the rest. All very easy to set up. The calendar scheduler is built in. I will go into that and I'll take you through that because it's quite powerful. You can manage up to 2,000 events, or 2,000 separate schedules, which is pretty nuts. And then this is the timer that's in these devices. So it's a basic weekly timer. If you were to run that separately independently, you could set it to have a bell or an alert at a set time on a weekly basis. Whereas this scheduler is multi-year, so you can do lots more customization. This is very basic, but generally these devices would be run in conjunction rather than standalone, so that's why it's like that. So how we operate them, as I mentioned, you can do standalone with the speaker. You can have the audio files loaded on that speaker. You can set the timer or the schedule to launch those audio files at a set time. And it can still do that independently or still be part of the network and working with the scheduling system. So it's really up to you. I can see this being, if you have one of these out in the car park and the car park closes automatically at 8 p.m. at night, you have a timer on it, so it pops up and saying 10 minutes before it closes that the car park's closing or something like that. Quite handy. So this is the more advanced way we deploy them. As I mentioned before, we can use a SIP server. You can use any SIP compatible devices. So lots of organizations now obviously have the standard old desk phone, but they also have clients on mobiles where you can do a SIP call, like much like something like Teams or something like that, and then you can page from that separately off site, or you can combine a SIP intercom. Obviously the main way would be using one of these, the paging microphone. And when you're using a SIP phone system, you need a SIP server. It's important to note when we use SIP protocol to page to individual devices, you don't actually need a server. So it can run independently. TOA sort of highlight that, but they don't explain it very well. So this is how we'd integrate with a local existing audio system. Obviously we've got the audio interface, which is this. It's getting the signal from either the paging microphone or from a SIP page. You get a contact out to an amp, or a line out to an amp, and then the local system. And then you've also got the small amplifier for running a local low impedance speaker. Maybe it's in the room where the device is. And you can also have external microphone or audio player playing in. So again, you might have a zone where they just want background music, but they don't need it to the entire network, but they want it running all the time. You could have an audio player attached to this, set at a certain volume, and then when the pages come through, it automatically ducks out or prioritizes over that background music. So, but you may not want the whole network to have that background music. So it's a good way to get around that. This is integrating with an emergency system. So in this setup, you've got the emergency PA system, which would be like a fire panel or a separate system. A lot of EWIS systems are separate to the main PA system because it's part of the standard that an emergency system should be separate, although that's kind of changing. So what happens here in a fire event, the emergency system kicks in, obviously launches all the alerts or the evacuation to the emergency speakers, but then also sends a signal to a local, one of the amplifier versions of this, and that overrides any existing pages. It has a priority set, so when the emergency system comes in, it takes over and it overrides anything else going on in the system at that point in time. You can also have this signal going to like here, and so when this gets a contact closure or an audio signal from the fire system, it starts broadcasting that alert, and everything else is overridden until the alert's cancelled. And this is a hybrid system where we've got our existing TOA IP system, and that's going to a gateway which converts it, and you can either send it to third-party systems, or you can send commands out to do different things, or you can send it out so it's going out to separate zones and separate areas. So it's a really flexible system. And the configurator. I will go into this, I'll show this in a bit. It's in terms of ease of configuration and deployment, this little bit of software makes life really easy when you're doing multiple devices. You might have a system where you've got 30, 40 devices, so having to log into each one and configure it is a bit of a pain. You can do basic configuration and uploads from this, and I'll take you through that in a sec. The scheduler looks like Outlook, really easy to use. You have admin access and guest level access. So the guests can only get in and have a look at this and make changes to the schedule. They can't get into the core programming of the unit, or core configuration, whereas obviously the admin can do everything. And this is a bit more in-depth with the SIP phone integrations. There's multiple ways of doing it. You can do direct SIP paging to the speakers if you just have that located on a network. Use a SIP server to the audio interface to convert. Again, you can use the SIP server to the amplifier to convert, or you can use the SIP server to the gateway, and the gateway will convert that SIP input and send it out to various different zones or other devices on the network. Yeah, pretty straightforward to set up. This is the security integration. I have to admit I don't know much about security systems. So obviously with the security you can be monitoring, you can get feedback from the microphone in there, you can launch events that the security system is launching events based on interactions or people breaking in, whatever, and you can combine it with the ONVIF protocol, which I understand is a standard kind of video security protocol. Yeah, so that's an overview of the system. What I'll do now is I'll log into some of the devices and show you where it's at. So bear with me. I'll just. Oh, any questions? No?
With the where you had the microphone and you recorded your announcement.
Yep.
After you do the announcement, does it delete it straight away, or does it keep it in the memory?
It stores it. So it stores. Yeah, it's like that announcement now. If I play back, yeah. So this is what I recorded before. So it'll store that forever until I record another announcement.
All right. So as soon as you keep it in memory no matter.
Yep.
Until you actually do another temporary recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that tone thing, the announcement tone, is that changeable?
Yes, 100%.
Oh, God.
That's awful. Just wait. I've got some audio that's far worse than that. Yeah. I managed to find the worst audio file on the internet, I think. So we'll.
Is it like 56 kilobit?
No, it's just awful music.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, right, I'll test everyone. Okay, so we can see that? Yes, we can. All right. So this is the IP setting tool, or the configurator. Basically, when we turn it on, it scans the network. The good thing with this is, I'll just downsize that a little bit. Remove that. Yeah, okay. Good thing with this is when you're configuring these devices, they will obviously come out of the factory with a preset IP range, right? So using this tool, you can plug all the devices into your network with your computer, do a scan. Doesn't matter if it's on the same IP range, it'll pick it up. So you can see that all these devices will have different IP addresses that don't match your existing network. All you do then is you choose each one, go to the network setting, put in the network details that match your system, and also you can give it a name. So I won't change the name there, but you could say this is the paging microphone, so you could call this front office microphone or something like that. So you know where devices are. You can also, it tells you the level of firmware there, so you can update the firmware from here. You can also do configuration file uploads and downloads. So this is where you can do your backups, but you might have 20 buildings all using one of these audio interfaces. So you have a basic configuration set up, and then you just upload it to that, and all you got to do is change the name of it and the IP address of each device, and then it's configured. All right.
Are there many firmware updates?
This is 3.1. I haven't seen one for a few months. Yeah, I mean, this device here came out of the factory as version 2.1. I think they've done a lot of updates to the GUI since then, but it's not weekly or anything like that. And if it's working, don't if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It's not automatic updates, it's manual.
It's manual, yeah, and that's a good thing, you know.
God knows what happens with every update.
Yeah, and in the audio world, it's like the golden rule if you have equipment is don't update until everyone else has and found the bugs. You know, not saying TOA releases firmware that's buggy, but you know,
We all know this.
people are people. The other thing you can do, obviously, is blink the LED. So you can see there, I've just set the LED blinking, so I can tell which device it is. Very handy, very quick. You can got a default username and password here, so you can log into it. But we'll go to the main window here. I'll log out. Okay, so 192.168.2, I think. So log on with my password.
We're assuming it's the same username, password, same thing.
Oh, 100%. But you can,
Out of the box.
yeah. Admin and guest. I mean, it's no secret. It's always either admin password, admin guest, or something like that. So this is the GUI, the interface for the paging microphone. I'll go through all the settings. It's pretty quick. So the first thing we've got is obviously the status. It tells you basic information. Here we can configure the keys. So you've got 10 configurable keys on this, and you've got 5 pages. So you have up to 50 different options on here for paging. So what you can do here is set how it's each key can launch a manual page or a pattern, or it can send a control signal or receive a control signal, or you can do an HTTP command for more advanced programming with other devices as well. And here you can limit or set whether it's going to receive a multicast stream or a SIP target. So SIP target is the individual IP address. So basically when it's paging, it's going to page that individual IP. Multicast, it's a preset group, but the way it works is there's 20 multicast streams. You then go to each device and say this device is going to receive multicast 2 or multicast 3, or all of them. But then you can program it, so say multicast 20 is all devices on the network. So every device on the network will receive multicast 20.
So pretty much you can create 20 different zone things.
Yeah. But you can,
Mix and
depending on how you do it, like with these audio interfaces, say if you had a school with a campus, say 10 buildings, and you had one of these in each building, you could effectively do a SIP page to each individual device as its own zone, and then do a multicast to all the buildings or to a group of buildings. So you can kind of get away with more than 20 depending on how you set it up. In here you can also limit what each button can receive, whether it's going to launch a recording, whether it can be a mic recording or an auxiliary input, or whether it's going to do a pattern. So I've got obviously button 1 here is my pre-recorded message. I load that. Okay. I don't know if I can stop it. No, I did. Okay, there you go. You can stop it. So you didn't need to hear my page. Button 2 is multicast paging. So I've set these devices to receive multicast 2. It'll be that pre-recorded message again. Will it? Oh no, it's a live page. So if you want, cancel that. And I promise you the worst piece of music I could possibly find. So button 3 is an automatic audio file launch, set to a pattern. Just truly awful. So you can do lots of, yeah, it could have been much worse, yeah.
Press it a few more times, I'm sure it'll be worse.
Yeah. So you can do lots of different things with those buttons, and you see up here on the screen we've got 50 different options. So you can key through the pages, and you could page 50 different devices or groups of devices, so forth. Network settings, pretty straightforward. You set the network IP address. It's important when you deploy these to working with the IT team at each site, because you need the gateway and DNS server. If you want to synchronize the time with a time server, it needs to see the outside world. But you can, I've got it synchronized with my computer at the moment, but it's better if you synchronize with a time server, and that way it takes care of daylight savings automatically and so forth. SIP settings, this is where if we have an existing SIP phone system, we can put in the server address, the user ID and the password, so it can integrate, and then effectively this device will become an extension of that phone system. So when people dial that extension, you can set it so the page will come through automatically, or it can launch an event or a pattern. You can also enable certain protocols. So if you know that the SIP system only uses G711U, well, there's no point having the other ones enabled. Just keep it tidy, keep it neat. Multicast transfer settings. This you don't really need to change unless there is a specific multicast address you need to send to. This is the defaults. It works. So unless you know specific multicast settings that you need, you don't need to change this. Audio. Now, with all the devices and audio files and destinations and multicast, you can set the volume individually on all of those as well. So you can leave it as a default 0 dB, but you could set, this audio interface needs to be 5 dB lower than where the speaker is, or louder. So you've got quite a bit of control in terms of audio volume control. Media this is where we store our media. You can see down here, it's our recorded audio. That's what I recorded before. Is it going to work? No, I think it's because I'm plugged into the TV. You can monitor that on the computer, but you can also check it there. So yeah, 20 files of audio. So this is where if you wanted different chimes, or you have preset pages that need to go at certain times of day, this is where you'd store them. The chimes you can change here as well. So there's 5 by default, and you can load your own custom ones, or you can turn off the chimes. So with the page I set before, I can disable the chimes if you don't need a chime before a page. Just depends on the customer's site. And you can also set each chime to have its own volume level as well, if it needs to be, if it's too quiet or too loud. Pattern, this is where we can take either audio files or events and set them to be repeating at certain times. So you do this maybe with a bell, like if you have your own specific bell sound, or an alert, or an evacuation. You can set the pattern to either play to a count, so you could say I want it to play 10 times every time it launches, or a duration where you can say I want it to run for 60 seconds. And then you can launch these patterns either automatically, or they can be launched off the buttons. It just depends on how you want to do it. Events, yes, I'll leave that without saving. So this is where we do our contact closures and control events. If you have external fire panel buttons, or you may have it, a lot of schools have those redback evac panels. Yeah, tone generators. You can incorporate that and set, if the contact closure is normally open, normally closed, all that kind of stuff. You can set here. You can also do control out events. This is where you set the priority, obviously. So you can say, no matter what on this device, microphone's going to have priority over everything else. If there's an event going on and someone wants the page from the microphone, that'll have the highest pattern. So if you're incorporated with an emergency system, you'd say that auxiliary in or control in from the emergency system has the highest priority. Command list, this is where you do the HTTP commands. You can do lots of HTTP commands. Don't ask me how you do it, I don't know. What the capabilities of it, but from what I've seen, you can set volumes, set events, do mutes, all based on commands going off at a set time. And obviously you have 9 pages of, how many commands in here? Command set 9, I think there's 10 in each one, so 90 different commands you can do. User, there's 2 levels of access here, and I'll show you that in a sec. Maintenance, this is where you can download config files, upload them if you need to update, do a factory reset, all that kind of stuff, pretty standard. The other big part of what we do here is the scheduler. So scheduler looks like pretty much like an Outlook calendar, pretty straightforward. You can set a time, so say I want an event to go at 10 o'clock, I want it to be pattern 1, give it a name, test event, and you can set the repeating here, so you can set it to go every day at 10 a.m. Set what time, and you could have it set there start and end, so you can say I want it to start at 10 a.m. and I want it to repeat till 10 a.m. and 15 seconds. So like if you were launching a bell tone, if you haven't set it up to be an automatic pattern, you could just say I just want this audio file to repeat for 15 seconds every day, and hit that, it's done. So this is, like I said, multi-year, multi-month. You can also, I think, yeah, cancel that. You can go through, I think you can highlight, no you can't. If you have specified holidays, like if it's a school, obviously when you program this, you'd say go through and find the holidays or public holidays or school holidays where there's no point having a bell going during the holiday, so you'd take out all these events and program it. Yeah, that's about it. Get rid of that. I think I've covered everything there. Yeah.
Question, are you able to send a real-time command to the microphone through the software? Like, send an audio file off-site or on-site,
Yeah.
through the software,
Uh,
go through the system?
Yeah, you could. This is not. You'd have to set this up as a public, accessible web page.
Yeah.
It would be. That's a good question. How you do that? Whether you can set it up with an HTTP command, so if it receives an audio file from an email address or into a certain folder, or the most likely one, dial into the SIP system with a SIP client and launch an audio file from there. That's a good question. I'll look into that. I don't know how you get around with it.
It's more like an emergency title web coming.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know if in that situation you tie it in with an emergency system or something like that. Because you can launch events based on audio coming into the aux port. So you could have an extension on your phone system when you ring that, or it plays an audio file automatically, that comes into here and starts broadcasting an alert based on that, or broadcasting that audio. So you could do that. That's a way around it. Yeah. Any questions or anything? That's the system in a
So
shell.
Dave, I've got an inquiry now with a school.
Yep.
They've got built a new building.
Yep.
It's about 20, 30 metres away.
Yep.
So all they've got is an Ethernet cable.
Yep.
So they've got the old 100-volt line.
Yep.
So I'm just thinking the best way to work that out, how can they, over the Ethernet, so they need a transmitter?
Yeah. So you just have,
So So the new building will be predominantly all IP though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So in that situation, just let me go here. Yep. You'd have. Oh, where am I?
Yeah.
So. What's going on here? Oh, that's because I finished this slideshow. What am I doing? Wait a minute. Let me find it. You would use. Just let me get back to the front page here. Sorry, excuse me. I'm sure I could have done this a better way. You would use a gateway and an audio interface. So the gateway, if you're coming from the office,
So transmitter, receive.
yeah, it effectively convert it.
Because you had the NX, like
Yeah.
the NX1, so yeah.
The NX100's is,
Or 100, sorry. Yeah.
it's kind of a predecessor to this
Yeah.
now,
Okay.
you know, because it's quite limited in what it could do.
Yeah.
But you could effectively do the same thing with
Perfect.
one of those,
All right.
and converts the audio, sends it to IP signal, and away she goes.
Okay.
And these are like retail for like $1,200 or something like that.
Okay.
So
It's
that-
similar to the NX.
Yeah. yeah, well, probably cheaper, I think.
Yeah. They were a couple grand, weren't they?
Yeah. So yeah, you can use it just as an audio extender.
Yeah.
Yeah, with extra functionality if you wanted to.
Okay.
But yeah, certainly.
Perfect.
So, and I think easier to program than the NX100s. The NX100s needed certain little contact closures,
Yes,
wide,
yeah,
shut.
more.
Yeah, there's a bit
So
challenging.
they're available now, yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So it's all good. Any other questions? Or
Besides mixing, obviously the power, the mini power amp.
Yep.
But is there plans like to keep it always separate from the power amps, or are they going to build in?
I don't know. Yeah, with TOA, it's hard to say whether they're going to incorporate this functionality into the bigger amps.
Yeah. There might be a reason why not to.
Yeah. TOA sort of do their development at their own pace.
Yeah.
You know, they're still waiting to see if Bluetooth catches on before they add it to any of their amps. You know, so we'll see. But no, it's at the moment this is it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you could still use one of these audio interfaces just with a standard cheap amp, and it does the same job. You know. Yeah. That's it. We're all good.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.